This is Samuel Johnson, and this is my info and diversity speech. This speech is over the Native American culture and how it's impacted the American culture in current day. Native influence on American culture today. According to the National Congress of American Indians, in the 2010 decennial census, 0.9% of the entire United States population identified as American Indian or Native Alaskan. These also include states such as Native Hawaiians as well. Even though that number may be low, we can see how drastic their impact is in our culture and our current day life. There are many things that in your day-to-day life that you see that have been influenced in some way by Native Americans. And right here is just a few examples of the Native culture in current day. This is the Crazy Crow powwow event that happens every year or so before the pandemic. And it just is an example of how it's impacted our culture today, and they can come together and respect each other's culture and celebrate. Looking back in history, we can see similarities between the Native American pastimes and current American pastimes. Tribal natives hunted deer and other wild game to survive, whereas current Americans hunt for meat and as well as for sport. Native American pastimes and American pastimes can be very similar. I mean, even though they're such different cultures than the modern man, they're still men, and they're still women, and they're still kids. They have the same nuances, and they have the same wants and desires that we have, and that was displayed in history. But for example, one of the American pastimes that relates to the Native Americans in the past was hunting game. Hunting game evolved whenever the English introduced powder rifles to the Native American culture. Previously, the natives hunt with spears or bows and arrows. But now, whenever the English came over to the Americas, they introduced powder rifles, which changed everything. They could hunt more efficiently. They could hunt bigger targets easier. It blew it for pun unintended. It blew up across the entire nation. White-tailed deer was the animal that was most widely hunted by the Native Americans in the American frontier, and is actually still continuing to be the most hunted deer, or at least most hunted animal for Americans today. So that shows some similarity. The most widely recognized holiday Americans share with Native American culture is the current holiday of Thanksgiving. Everyone knows Thanksgiving. It's one of our favorite holidays where we just get to stuff our face with food and see some football and respect what we have. Thanksgiving is celebrated across the United States on the last Thursday of November every year with a wide span of food options. And I mean, everyone here knows that, you get your turkey, get your mashed potatoes, put some gravy on and maybe some green beans, trying to be a little healthy. And then you get some cranberry sauce to fix that issue. And then Thanksgiving is also celebrated in current American culture with the message of giving thanks to one another. As seen in this painting by Karen Ronaldo, the Pilgrims and the natives came together as a group to give thanks to the peace that they still had with one another. While other tribes may be hostile, there were certain tribes that helped the Pilgrims, and that's why we give thanks even till today. Native American influence on our current American culture can be found everywhere in your day-to-day life. I mean, I guarantee every single person who sees this knows someone who's Native American, or at least knows someone who has a Native American relative. Even though that it's such a small number, you can see the impact in your everyday life. According to Britannica.com, celebrations of Native American culture include gatherings for the purpose of singing, dancing, and respecting traditions. Now, in one of the previous slides, I showed you the Crazy Crow powwow. And those powwows were kind of the Native American get-together where they circled around and sang, dance, and now in current day, you can do all of that and show all your beautiful beautiful foods, beautiful art, beautiful crafts, everything respecting the Native American culture. The native populations are currently most heavily populated in the American Southwest. On this map, you can see what is called the Trail of Tears, which lasted from 1830 to around 1850. And it was a horrible event where all of the natives were forced out west towards Arkansas, Oklahoma, that sort of area. And they just kept getting pushed farther and farther west. And that's where they reside nowadays. So in those areas, you see an increase of Native American indigenous people, such as in the second slide here. You can have the American Indian population by county, which you can see is in the heavier, deeper purples or the pinks are in that area of Arkansas and out west where they were pushed by the American government. In conclusion, you can see Native American culture basically anywhere. You just look at art or look at music even. You can look at history where the natives used their own, or the Americans used Native Americans to relay information in their own speech to hide from infiltration. Just everything you can look towards, you can see some sort of influence in Native American culture into our current American culture. Even especially in Kentucky, I've researched it a little bit, and I found out that in Kentucky, Native Americans were the first people to actually raise guinea pigs. So that's a little fun thing. Next time you see a guinea pig, it has some Native American roots. And it's just important to see how other cultures can define and affect or impact our culture today. Thank you very much.